Recording in progress.
Welcome to the August 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Palo Alto Architecture Review Board. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Balte,
Present.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Present.
Board Member Chen,
Present.
Board Member Hirsch,
Present.
Board Member Thompson, present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is public comment. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board on any item not on our agenda today? Staff?
I have no speaker cards or raised hands.
Wonderful, thank you. Next is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Staff, do we have anything?
None today.
Very good. Next is city official reports. Do we have any official reports from the city, please?
Thank you. Let's see, trying to recall new projects that were submitted since we last met. I believe there was some exterior modifications to a previous planning entitlement for restoration hardware that are proposed. The project that is before you today, 3600 Middlefield Fire Station 4 redevelopment. We also had, actually, I think that was it since the last hearing. Yeah. And in terms of report outs, there are a few items that haven't been reported out. Perhaps we can have the assigned ad hocs report out at the next meeting.
Okay, so I'd like to remind my colleagues that we have a long list of potential and tentative projects, and we've assigned subcommittees to the ones we think are important. And I'd like to remind our colleagues that I'd like to hear back from, I guess it's Board Members Rosenberg and Hirsch regarding the project at 3150 El Camino Real. I know you reported back on that once. There's now a formal application that's been submitted. So if possible, I'd like to get that next meeting. Sure. Just what do you guys see on that so far? And then the same thing applies to Board Members Rosenberg and Thompson regarding 3265 El Camino, and Board Members Chen and Hirsch regarding 3997 Fabian Way. So can we agree that we'll hear from these subcommittees at our next meeting? Thank you very much.
And just to confirm, so that was 3265 for Rosenberg and Thompson?
That's what I have on our list here, yes.
And then will the, Claire, would you guys be able to resend out the links to these projects?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much.
I'll remind my colleagues again, we're not looking for subjective discussion or review of the merits of the project, rather the content of the application, and then anything you think might be worth other members of the board actually looking at on their own, just to keep us all straight and narrow on it. Thank you. Is there anything else, staff, on this item?
I just wanted to double check as we get through the summer, are there any other upcoming planned absences that you guys are aware of?
We can confirm with Board Member Thompson that her August 17th will be her last meeting.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so we're ready to move on?
Yes.
So our first action item today is public hearing, quasi-judicial for 3600 Middlefield Road. Recommendation on applicant's request for approval of a major architecture review to allow the deconstruction of the existing Palo Alto Fire Station number 4 and construction of a new 8,000 square foot fire station. So can we have a staff report on that, please?
Good morning, board members. My name is Garrett Sauls. I'm the project planner working on this application for fire station number 4 at 3600 Middlefield Road. This property is located at the corner of East Meadow Drive and Middlefield Road. As the fire station also shares the property with the city's electric substation, which you can see on the screen. My cursor is moving around here. It's bounded by the Presbyterian Church and the Little League on either side. As was noted by the chair, This project is to replace an existing one-story fire station with a new lead silver one-story fire station that's about 25 feet in height. Within the project that's proposed, there are going to be 12 parking stalls, 10 of which are going to be primarily used by city staff, 2 of which are going to be available for the public to be able to use. There are also going to be 3 emergency vehicle loading bays, 2 of which will provide a direct exit out onto Middlefield Road for emergency vehicles, and 1 which will be kind of just like a storage loading bay for any sort of maintenance or other sort of needs that the city staff will have. And there's also going to be a proposed emergency generator on site. With the project, there is a proposal to remove 12 trees on site with a replacement requirement for 33 trees on and off site. This project was reviewed by the ARB during a preliminary ARB application back on February 16th of earlier this year. And the following items you see here are comments that were provided by the ARB during that conversation, which focused on considering either redesigning the building so that it would provide more of a civic statement piece or a structure, either being possibly taller or more dense. Other comments were about considering adding a corner glazing element to provide more of a pop at the corner of the building, adding additional windows to the training room to increase connectivity to the space for the public, and ensuring that the drawings would be consistent. You can see here on this elevation, this was the previous elevation you had seen, and the below is the proposed. So you do see some elements such as an increasing of the eave point at this entry or this portion of the facade. You also see additional windows added into that training room space. You can see at the back here that this glazing now would be changed to this more stucco siding of this building. So there are some modifications to the design that you have seen previously, or from what you've seen previously. Other comments were to consider a different type of wood, a faux wood material on the building, considering site planning a relocation of the existing fuel tank, as the board felt that it restrained some of the site planning concerns that they had or interests that the board had on reconfiguring other sort of elements of the building, and to ensure that the functionality was provided for all users, both the public as well as city staff. And lastly, one of the last comments that the board provided was to provide a full landscape plan, which is in the plan sets. And again, you can see on the right-hand image here, the previous design and then the proposed design. You can see that there has also been some modification to some of the glazing that was proposed in the initial design that was reviewed back in February. Public Works city staff also had a couple of instances of additional public outreach after the public hearing on February. There was an online community meeting held on April 6th earlier this year. The city staff also presented this design, which you can see behind me is the model that was presented at the MSC's open house event on July 15th. And at that event, staff had asked the public who participated and shown up to also fill out a survey on their responses to the project. They also, after the MSC open house, Public Works had a meet and greet with the artist that's been selected for the public art component that's going to be incorporated into the design. This was on July 19th to allow for additional community input and inform some of the sort of the conceptual design for the public art that's going to be included. And lastly, overall, from the responses that staff had received was that from the public, this design was overwhelmingly positive of what was being proposed. Staff's recommendation for the project, as noted in the staff report, is to recommend approval of the project based on the included findings and conditions of approval. We also have the applicant here who will provide a presentation on their project as well.
Thank you for that. Can we have the applicant come up and make a presentation, please? You'll get 10 minutes, like every member of the public. If you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Ford. I'm a principal with BRW Architects based in San Francisco. It's great to be back again after our first meeting in February. I think we've got a lot of interesting points.
If I could interrupt you, please, you need to spell your name for the record so they transcribe it properly.
Sure. Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Ford, F-O-R-D. Principal.
Thank you. Go on.
Thank you, Garrett, for the introduction. Also here today with me, Chief Lindsay. If you have questions regarding operations with the Palo Alto project management team, Valerie, Matt, and Bridget are here. James Halliburton, my project manager, is also here and has been key in developing the 32-page submittal that it put together. Also, listening in remotely today is Chris Sano, the director of our design group, and he'll be available if there's some questions. He's joined in as a participant. As Garrett mentioned, we've got the study model. There's a hard copy of the 32-page submittal. We've got copies of the arborist report from Mr. McNair. A little bit of update. We had the DRC review last week, and that made some resulted in a couple of minor revisions that are now included in your set. As Garrett mentioned, we've done 2 public hearings, obviously public community meetings, and we'll touch on that at the end of the presentation. So in the 10 minutes here, we wanted to break it into 5 different categories. Wanted to show you the comments that we've addressed by providing some more information, design changes and clarifications. As Garrett mentioned in the introduction, it's evolved since the February initial submittal. Comments regarding the elements of the functional layout that we have not changed, some comments regarding the elements and approach to exterior design that have not changed, and then wanted to give a recap on the 2 community presentations. So as I presented how it's evolved, how we've listened to your comments, how we've made adjustments, followed by some of the design and functional elements that we took the comments to heart, discussed it with the team, and have move forward on this final presentation. Let's start with comments addressed by providing some more information. We clarified the location of the existing fuel tanks. I think the last submittal was confusing and that it made the access ports that are actually down in the driveway look like bollards, and we're blocking the traffic. As it shows on that 3D, the fuel dispensing pumps can stay where they are. They're not blocking any of the traffic flow. And the circles that were shown on the site plan are actually the access ports. Clarification on the training room and if it's open to the public. So in working with the fire department, the priorities for the training room is primarily as a backup EOC, Emergency Operations Center. Second would be the city-sponsored events. And then third would be for fire department training. So there is a ability for the public to attend and use the facility, knowing that its priorities are as backup EOC and city-sponsored events. More information is also number 3, fence details that we've included in the submittal. Next slide. As Garrett mentioned, the full landscape plan is now included. The plaza and paving design, both here in the drawings and on the study model, is now in your package. It was M1 in your submittal. We've clarified the vehicle flow, including how the gates are going to work from East Meadow. There was some questions about how the public parking comes and goes off of East Meadow, how the vehicles, I think Garrett also touched on this, the 2 apparatus bays on the east side, those are the emergency response bays, and they go out onto Middlefield just like they are now. And then the third, what we call the West Bay, is for reserve unit. It's not responding on a 911 call. It's there to be a backup unit. It also on M1, we're showing how vehicles pull in from East Meadow, how city vehicles would use the fuel tanks and then exit out onto East Meadow, just like they do now. And then the emergency response out onto Middlefield is the same. That back area, which includes the staff parking, is really a utility yard that, as that M1 shows, has multiple functions and responsibilities, including cleaning the rigs. And that's 6, 7, and 8. So that concludes the items that we've hopefully clarified with a little bit more information and development. Some design changes, again, to improve the visual connection. So it was brought up that there really wasn't a way for the public on Middlefield to see into the station living quarters or the firefighters in the living area, what we call the day room and the dining and kitchen area, to see out to Middlefield. And so we've coordinated that, and we've added a window sort of between those two functions. The public won't be looking in on the day room where the training is going on. They won't be looking directly into the kitchen. It'll be down that sort of central hallway. They'll see the activity and there'll be that visual connection. The second was, can the public see into the training room? And as Garrett mentioned, and it's on the elevations, we've now modified those windows. They're not looking directly at the back of the people sitting in training, but at the two wings. And then we have another window added at the corner of the lobby. And we took that to heart as adding more pop and interest at the corner of Middlefield and East Meadow. Next slide. Some questions about sound control. And this also came up in the DRC review to make sure that the bedrooms facing the electric, the city substation have blackout curtains. That's our standard in fire station design to have the added sound control. We've incorporated that into the design. There was also a comment about, if you recall, the earlier design had two doors to get from the training room to the public bathrooms. We've rearranged that front office area and worked with the chief on the layout for security and flow. Now it's much simpler. There's just one door between the lobby and the training room, and then one door from out of the training room to get to the lobby to then go into the public restroom. So that we really appreciated that comment. I think the design is much better. On the living side, operation side, day room side, it's really been mostly adjustments for equipment, and mechanical systems, and structural. Touching on some comments that we regarded elements of the functional layout that have not changed. There was some question about maybe spinning the building 90 degrees and going with the emergency vehicles out onto East Meadow. I think we answered that at the meeting, but I just wanted to remind everybody that that was a question that we've kept our response out onto Middlefield. Second was, can you move the fuel tanks? The easiest way to say it is they're kind of perfect where they are now. It allows for the flow of the city staff, city support vehicles to come, fuel, and exit out onto East Meadow without getting in the way of the flow of the fire station response and return and their parking. Again, that back utility yard is going to be used quite extensively for refuel, cleanup, restock, the recreation, and staff parking. Another comment or request was look at moving the entrance lobby closer to the visitor parking. And as you probably see from the design, it's a balancing act of having it pop and prominence on the corner of East Meadow and Middlefield, balanced with the distance that somebody at the visitor parking would have to walk to get to the front door. We think we've reached that balance now. We like the fact that the lobby and the presence is still on the corner. We've made the visitor parking, if they're coming for an event at the training center, there's a door straight in. They don't have to walk all the way around. If there's a big event or a big training exercise, some of the cars are going to park at Mitchell and walk down East Meadow anyway. So it's just a little bit further distance. So we'd like to settle in today and hear your comments about the layout of the parking, but we think we've got it right. Finally, just again, comments that came up on the exterior design. One was propose a more cubistic design to make it more exciting. Pick a lighter color wood pattern tile. We've got this sample board here. I think the renderings continue to show it really a little darker than what it's going to be. So we've brought the sample to answer that question. Go to 2 stories. As Garrett pointed out, and Chief Lindsay will talk about the benefits of staying 1 story. It fits. Don't use tile that looks like wood. It's a rain screen system. One good benefit of this rain screen tile system is it also meets the deconstruction ordinance for the city. And that material we think is the appropriate balance. I'm running out of time. So the last point there on the community meetings, the 2 community meetings right there on the right side, is some of the quotes and results of the 91% that responded say they would not want to change the design or strongly agree. That's my 10 minutes. Went as fast as I could.
Thank you very much. That's
So
good.
available for your questions. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before that, please, I'd like to offer the fire chief an opportunity to address us for about 2 minutes. If you'd like to just add anything, this is as a courtesy as the fire chief. Just 2 minutes, but a quick statement if you don't mind.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Steve Lindsay, Steve, Lindsay, Lindsey. Just want to thank everybody for your time today. We spent a lot of time reviewing kind of the pros and cons of all the different iterations of station design, and this is the design that we're really proud of. We think that it meets the needs of the community and the needs of the department. As far as the layout goes, the station is very well thought out from our perspective as far as giving, respect to the crews when they are in their off-duty time or their quiet time and quiet hours. They have an area to rest, and then it also has training grounds. It has a workout room, and it also provides us with easy access to the public with the community-facing side. So we're really proud to present this to you, and we look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Lindsay. Okay, I'd like to open the meeting to public comment. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us on this issue?
No, I've not received any speaker cards or raised hands.
No speaker cards. Okay, very well. We'll close the meeting to public comment then. So to my colleagues, do we have any questions for the applicant or staff? I'd also like to ask if all of us have had a chance to look at that model over there.
I haven't. I was
So-
going to ask if we could
So
get
maybe we
it.
should just take a 2-minute break before we ask questions to go look at that model. So we're not going to formally stop the meeting, but anybody who'd like to can walk over and look at that model. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, we neglected to ask for disclosures, so I would like to do that. Do we have any disclosures from members of the board on this issue? Starting with Board Member Thompson.
I visited the site.
I visited the site as well.
Yeah, I disclosed that I also visited the site.
I also visited the site.
I also visited this site.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, a few minutes is to look at that model over there.
Let's not ask questions, and we need to be on the microphone. Or you can use the microphone if you want. Yeah. Use the microphone.
I can't.
Test, test.
Test. I don't know how to turn this off.
Test, test.
So this is David's mic. Does this one work?
Yes.
Are we working now?
Test.
That works.
Oh, did it suddenly come back?
Testing?
It's working. Testing.
Testing?
Testing.
Test, test.
I've got Elise saying the sound works. She was here at the echo, but that's because we had too many things open.
None of the iPads are up, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, we turned the sound off on that one.
We have the big screen.
And I turned mine off.
So we try again. Is there less echo now? Elise, can you give me a thumbs up?
She's on the chat wall. So.
Yep. Yay.
Claire, can you please get us started? Are we ready to go? Once you announce that to the public, then.
Do we need to?
Yeah, if you want your iPad, I'll use the big one.
Elise, do we have visuals?
No. Oh, no.
Sounds like sound's working, but our visual's working. Okay, yes, Elise is seeing a picture of the chambers, which would be the proper picture right now. Thank you.
Okay, Claire, are we set to go? Can you announce?
I think we are set to go.
Yeah.
We're just getting our iPads, but I think we can get started if you'd like to open up the.
Okay, and are we on air? The streaming is okay to the public?
Yes, the light is on.
And Board Member Hirsch, can you hear okay now?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Okay, so take a deep breath. To the applicant, if you could come back and resume responding to Board Member Hirsch's question regarding the exterior materials. And why don't we start from the beginning on that question, just in case anybody's missing on it. Member Hirsch, could you repeat your question, please?
Yes, thank you. So my question was, in the rear courtyard, the fire apparatus entry areas, there are sort of two elevations facing that courtyard, right? I'll call it two just because they're separate one from the other. One is the shop in the electrical room and the other is the exercise room. So I was asking, what is the material? And actually, you know, the more I look at it, the more I'm noting that what we are seeing on our materials board is really one stucco color, I think, right?
Yes, Chris Ford, BRW Architects. The model that you've been looking at, it printed, it's an earlier version, it printed a little bit dark. The video that's up on the screen now and also available through the project website is a little clearer that it's a light colored stucco, whether, I don't think it'll be a white or a bright white, probably more of an off-white. That area is really not viewed by the public, and we didn't see the value in investing in the wood pattern tile back there.
Okay, so while I'm looking at this image here, in terms of use, the outside, I didn't notice whether or not the exercise area has a perimeter exercise as well, outside exercise. You know, the present space has a kind of a temporary facility for exercise. Is this an exercise area outside of the glass wall there?
That's a good question. When we designed the interior, the conditioned space, we used Fire Station 3 as the model. At Fire Station 3, the exercise room is the same size and it's upstairs. It has some big sliding glass doors that are very nice. It opens to the trees. But if you wanted to do some aerobics outside, or what they call the battle ropes, or they have a basketball court now, maybe like paddleball or something. So the idea of having the exercise be big enough for all the equipment, fully conditioned, like Station 3 meets all the standards, but having big openable doors so they can let in fresh air or go outside or, you know, do some outdoor exercise. So we tried to bring the two together, but in terms of, you know, meeting the design criteria for their aerobic, stretching, weights, what's called a Smith machine, that's all indoors.
Okay. So in terms of the materiality of that, the stucco on the entire backside of the residential area there is really going to be the same material as is on the back of the larger form in the middle. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Our residential, yes.
Yes, your
Facing the
residential,
power
yeah.
station, yes. That's all just durable, you know, economical stucco, correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this picture, you know, now that's up on the screen is clearer as to.
Right, yeah, Valerie behind me is taking control. This is the animation that we've got online. And again, the wood colors coming in a little darker than what we think is actually going to be there.
But that turns the corner into the open area that's next behind the common room.
Correct. Like where that animation is right now, we're just crossing over the fence. We're sort of crossing through the fence at the utility yard and then headed towards Middlefield. Once we're using the wood tile here on the firefighter patio area because we know that is going to be
Visible.
on view. Yeah,
Visible
very much on
from
view.
the street.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And then as Garrett was mentioning on the tree mitigation, we're replanting a bunch of trees down Middlefield, taking out those bottle brush, sort of bush / trees area. So a lot of our tree mitigation is going to be along middle field as much as we can. Then the balance would be turning the
If we could try to
corner.
focus on the questions, please.
Sure.
David,
Yeah, that's true.
do we have any other questions? from
Yeah,
you,
no,
David?
no, I didn't ask the landscape issue that we could go on to that. Yeah, so
Any other questions, David?
not at the moment.
Okay, any other board members with questions for the applicant? Board Member Thompson?
Sure. Just want to clarify. So is the stucco color not defined? Because we have a color on the material board, but you were mentioning that it could be a bright white or an off-white.
I don't recall the name of the color. What's the color?
So it is defined. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it's more, it's not as bright as what showed up on our animation.
Okay, and then can you clarify what the texture of the stucco is supposed to be?
It'd be a light dash, not a sand finish. That's a little too fussy, but it'd be like a light dash, light textured stucco.
So not smooth.
Not a sand finish, the smooth, no. Our concern with the smooth sand finish would be picking up dust and difficult to hide any cracks. So a little bit of texture is our recommendation.
And are there going to be seams in the stucco like there are in the model?
There'll be what's called control joints. They can be very narrow, just a razor thin joint, or they could be more pronounced. And that's a detail we can focus on.
Okay. And can you clarify that the glass is bird safe?
Great point. And I didn't mention that, but that was one of the comments that came through on our DRC review last Wednesday. Well, your board had comments about less glass. When we had a community meeting, the online meeting, they said less glass and make sure it's bird safe. And yes, it will be the fritted glass with the bird safe. Absolutely.
Okay, I was going to ask how you're making it bird safe. So is the plan just a frit, like a dot frit?
I'm going to defer to the experts on that. I just can confirm that it's going to meet the requirements for the bird safe. I don't know if we've really solved that. Pick the material. It's James. Go ahead and announce yourself.
James Halliburton, BRW Architects. I think our strategy is a fritting pattern that's been proven to be a bird safe measure for glass. I don't know the exact pattern on that, but that's our strategy.
Okay, so you don't know if it's a dot matrix or some kind of other line matrix? Or
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, so it's not defined yet.
We do have, just if I can interject here, we do have a standard condition we've used for other projects that require certain levels of bird safe glazing be used. And there are many ways to achieve it, not just with like a dot pattern or other sorts of ways, of course. So we can incorporate that as a part of this project. And I do also have a slide I can share about the materials with the specific names that were provided during the review, if you want me to do that once you're done asking questions.
Yeah, is that in our packet anywhere, the name?
I don't believe so. So let me go ahead and share that screen right now.
Okay. While you're doing that, I'll just ask my next question. In terms of the design intent, is the intent for the wood tile to match the fence color? Is that a design intent, or is the intention for them not to match?
Our intent would be that the tile, a slightly richer, darker tone, the ipe or like a natural wood would lighten over time and you have it more of a lighter natural look. And then the tile the color we're recommending for the tile would not change. It would remain a sort of a richer earth tone.
Okay, so there's not meant to be a sense of continuity necessarily.
Not necessarily. No, the fencing is the horizontal grain and the building tile is the vertical orientation.
Okay, and then I just have one more question about the big letter 4 on the facade. I just wanted to sort of ask about that. Is that how it's intended to be, that it's going to be, and how big is this letter for, and what's it made out of?
We proposed that. I think that it's supported by the department to have to start to project the station number. We don't have the details worked out fully, but it would, from our previous projects, it would be either like a water jet cut steel, so a thin steel, or a more, for Fire Station 14 in Sacramento, it was more of a dimensional aluminum. But simple, not lit, and pulled away from the building, not applied directly on the face to get some shadow. If the board likes that idea of having the four, the fire department liked it, so.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify if that is part of the design or if that is not part of the design.
Yeah.
The signage isn't included in this application.
It is.
That's going to be, it's not, no. The sign, any sort of new signage is going to be part of a new application or a separate staff level application that we'll review.
I see. So the 4 is not part of something that we're.
It is not
supposed
part
to
of this
comment on.
formal application in the way that we're, trying to approve it now or recommend hopefully an approval. It's mostly just shown like in other designs kind of as a perspective of what, obviously could be some type of signage on the building.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Yeah, okay, David, go ahead. Just two other colleagues also want to ask questions. So.
I have another question concerning the mechanical systems. I note you have mechanical equipment on top of the exercise room. You don't have clear story windows in that area at all. No. So, how is that system described? I mean, I don't think it's in our drawing set, but you really have kind of two kinds of mechanicals that are for offices or for the training room. They're separate systems then, are they not?
They're separate. Again, Chris Ford, they're all driven by a pair of what's called VRF condensers, fully electric condensers that can modulate between hot and cold, and then they distribute hot or cold water out to individual either air handlers for a big space like the training room or individual cassettes like in a bedroom. One analogy would be like a hotel, that every room in that hotel has its own little cassette or its own little air handler, but in a hotel, there's a giant set of chillers on the roof. In our case, the two VRFs are going to be in the parapeted area above the exercise room. There'll be some, they make noise and they, vibrate a little bit. So we thought the exercise room, they're not going to be above a bedroom. That's driving everything that is heating and cooling the entire station, with the exception of the apparatus bay, which doesn't get air conditioning. It'll have electric heating. It also has a different tailpipe exhaust system. So there's some special equipment in the apparatus bay, but the balance is all driven through those VRF condensers up on the roof, all electric.
So then there's a crossover situation where it takes care of the.
Correct. Yeah,
training
not
room.
duct work, but just the hot or cold
Hot or
refrigerant
cold.
lines.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, Board Member Chen, did you have some questions?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. On the site plan, you show the staff bike racks along the power station side. Could you please clarify the width of the walkway there?
Sure. The walkway, the pinch point for the walkway between the exercise room and the fence, it's not a property line, it's just a fence between a new fence between us and the power station. Gets down to about 6 feet. And then as it passes by the exercise room and the captain's bedroom, it grows out to 10, 11 feet. And that's where we would have bike racks, not for the public, those are out on the plaza, but the bike storage area for firefighters, for staff.
Okay, so when the bikes park there, then which means the walkway will reduce to like 3 feet or maybe
No,
less?
the bikes would be, that's a great question. The bikes would be parked in that wider area near the bedroom
Oh,
windows.
okay.
So there'd still be a walkway to get back there, clean the windows or walk along the fence.
Okay, yeah, maybe you want to update your set plan to make sure the note on the right place. On the landscape plan, there is a curve. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. On the landscape plan, there is a curve design at the street corner. Could you please clarify what is that near the utility pole at the street corner?
Can you, for the sake of them being able to answer the question, is there a page that you're looking at?
If you see sheet J-4, or there is a colored landscape plan, I cannot find it right away. Oh, it's J-1, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That a little elliptical curve there, that's got the existing power pole, traffic signal. There's a raised box controlling the traffic signal. It's quite crowded, so we wanted to have a design that sort of scooped out that area so nobody's walking through there. We also have a guy wire coming down, and that shows up in the video as well. So we knew that what we're recommending is, because there's so many parts and pieces and boxes and valves and covers, let's just extend the sidewalk around that and clean all that up and have it extension of the sidewalk. It make it easier to sweep, easier to clean. Right now it's in the ivy and it's a bit of a mess.
Okay,
That's all that's happening there.
Thank you. So for all the windows at the training room and the day room, are they operable windows?
We would have higher level operable windows, not down at ground level, because if they're like a hopper window or a transom window, they could block the walkway. But we will be recommending that they have high operable windows. Absolutely.
You mean could you please point where they are? They're not at the clerestory level, right?
No, they'd be above
The smaller.
6 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
The upper part of those vertical
I
windows
see.
would be
Thank you.
operable. I think that's a great suggestion.
And I noticed the apparatus doors, they're different for the doors facing the middle field and the doors facing the utility yards. They're different door types. So are they budget reasons, or they're functional, or why they're different?
Both. Starting with the doors out to middle field, they're called four-fold sectional doors. They're very fast. They're very reliable. They open horizontally, and they are much more expensive than where I've been doing stations for 25 years. The overhead sectional, where you see everywhere, slower. There is a concern that as they open, if you drive out too fast, you don't clear it and you clip it. So the fourfold are extremely popular. We did the design standards for the city of San Francisco. It took a while for them to get it. They now have that as their standard. It's becoming the standard, but they are about 3 times the cost of the overhead sectional. So in the back, you're returning from a call, you're cleaning up, sirens aren't going off, your captain's not yelling at you, so you have time to let the overhead sectional do its job. And they're very reliable and they work fine. They're just not as high quality and preferred on the alarm side. So
I see. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Rosenberg, any questions?
Yeah, I have 3 hopefully quick ones. So just possibly 4. So just to confirm with the stucco, it looks like there's grid patterns on there. You had answered Board Member Thompson already. So on that large white one in the front. The rest of them I have less concerns about, but that large frontage white one on Middlefield, will there be notable grid lines or no?
Yes, that's a great distinction. We integrated the crack control to make a pattern there. We don't know where the public art would end up. So once that's decided, we'll coordinate with that. As Garrett mentioned, maybe signage. We're leaving the palette as blank as we can, but having that, the gridded pattern with the control joints, more of a express control joint is an important part of the design.
Perfect.
There
And
in the
so
front.
that sort of rolls into question number 2, is that upper portion of the white is being reserved for signage or artwork or something?
Yes.
In theory.
In theory, yes. Sure.
Sorry, right behind you, you got.
Hi, Valerie Tam with Public Works, one of the project engineers. We have a commissioned artist already, Stephen Galloway. He is in the design process currently at the Meet the Artist event. He talked to neighborhoods to see what, as part of his design process, but he does not have any options for us as of now.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification. Okay, and then just in terms of the internal, Chris, if you don't mind, what is above that captain's office? Because that does seem to be a very tall space, and I'm assuming that there's something above there, or it's going to be a 15-foot tall ceiling. What's the plan in that room?
Well, and that relates to Member Hirsch's question. The air handler for the training room will be there. So it'll be a mechanical mezzanine and the water heater and maybe some support equipment for the microgrid. So it'll be like a mechanical mezzanine access from that storage room. We'll have a ladder in the storage room to get up there.
And so
I think also if you look on H1, it does show some of that detail too.
Perfect. Thank you. Just on that note, really quickly, is there a vent to the outside? Is it on the side or the front? Is there any sort of ducting that goes from the outside of that mechanical space to the outside of the building?
Yeah, that'll be where they pull in the fresh air.
Okay. And so that'll be visible to the left side, I'm assuming not.
Yeah, we'll hide it in the back or on the left side. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's a good comment.
Last question, I promise. The wall between the day room and what kind of appears to be a hallway, is that a low wall or is that a full height wall?
Low wall.
So
yeah, just high enough to extend above the chairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are all my questions.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
If I could follow up with a few more details I'm unclear on. On the roof, what is the slope of the roof, the pitch? I'm just asking because the drawings appear to be a little bit different to me than the model. Do you have that? I don't see that specification in the drawings. Perhaps I'm missing it though.
Yeah, I'm looking on the H1, which was where we'd have the targets top and bottom. It's roughly at 1 foot, 1 and 12 to get the pitch for the microgrid.
I'm sorry. So the roof pitch is 1 in 12?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is that
the big one.
Is that what's shown on these elevation drawings now? Again, I asked that because it just doesn't quite seem like it. Okay, if I could also ask then, what is the thickness, the size of the fascia that's visible? Again, the model has a fairly large horizontal band. And I see your details here, but at the scale that they're drawn, I don't see any dimensions. And I guess I'm wondering if we're really going to be bigger than that, because you seem to show a fairly slender structural element for what seems to be a large cantilever.
That's a great point. The study model that we put together for the open house, it's a bit of a low tech. It's really just take 2 pieces of the foam core and put them together to make it look thicker. We're now working with the structural engineer on the system, the cantilevers, the insulation with the energy modeling. Our goal is to get it as thin as possible, but still look substantial. So we're now attempting to get it down to 15 to 18 inches is our latest iteration.
But there's no definitive detail here of how thick that's going to be at the moment, right? I'd like to ask what the material is on that soffit on the underside. I see repeated references to a wood soffit, but I don't see anything on the material board as to what that is. Surely it's not the tile.
James Halliburton, BRW Architects. The soffit material under that roof is a aluminum that has a wood finish on it. So it's a very durable material. So it's intended to complement the colors and textures of the other wood, but it is a soffit application that's very lightweight and durable.
And is that somewhere specified in this package?
I believe it was, but we can check.
Staff, is that information anywhere in here?
No, it is not the tile system. It is an aluminum, powder coated aluminum system.
Yeah, I see the reference to wood soffit, but what I'm understanding is it's actually a printed aluminum soffit.
It should be more of a wood look soffit.
Wood look soffit, yes. Okay, thank you. Garrett, you flashed a slide a little while ago with some specific colors and material specs. Is that again part of our application information, or is that just an additional submittal that?
This is a part of the submittal that they provided to city staff, but I don't believe it was included in the packet. But it is part of the public record.
It's part of the public record, but my colleagues and I haven't had a chance to see what the color actually is, right? We're just looking at this sample with no specification on it. Okay, thank you. I'd like to clarify that the public parking space is provided in the event that the community training room is used by the public, if they reserve it and use it. How do they park? Say you have 10 community members want to come have a meeting there. How does that work? Where can they park their vehicles and how do they get in? Maybe you could walk me through that.
Starting with the operation side, if Chief Lindsay wanted to talk about the primary uses of that space, but we always anticipated that if it is going to be a community invited event, that they could use Mitchell Park and walk from the parking lot along East Meadow in front of the church and then use the sidewalk to get there.
So then to be clear, the intention is not to provide parking for that kind of function on site.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
And we're aware that there really is no curbside parking in that area.
Not on East
Because it
Meadow,
was
no.
quite a pain just to stop my car to get over there the other day. So you expect people to park in Mitchell Park and essentially walk over?
Just across the street, looking at, Google Maps and having done it myself too, there is street parking along East Meadow Circle. I'll go ahead and share my screen if that matters. That isn't as far down as Mitchell Park. So there would be an opportunity for any residents who come by. You can see here on the right-hand side of the image, to the left is where the existing fire station is. The right-hand side here, you do see that there is a space basically provided for curbside parking.
And the two parking places that are provided as you go in the main entrance drive on the right, there's two public spaces before the gate going in. But are those ADA restricted? At least one of them must be. Are they both or just one?
One will be ADA and one will be prepped for EV.
Oh, so will it then have a sign that says EV charging only? Is that the kind of thing?
Once it's developed, I think our instructions or our direction so far has been to anticipate the rough end for EV charger there, as well as rough end for EV chargers at the staff parking in the service yard.
I wonder if I could then ask a question of Chief Lindsay, because I'm really confused about how this space is going to be used. Is it really the intention that this training room would be open to the public?
So the primary intention of this room is to be used as a South Zone EOC, so an Emergency Operations Center, and that'll be in coordination with the Office of Emergency Services. And then the secondary would be to do a community training room for public training, public education, that kind of stuff, and then firefighter training as well. Our firefighters are required to have 24 to 48 hours of continuing education for their EMT or paramedic. And so we would be hosting fire department EMS training there as well.
But the firefighters could park in the yard behind the
Yes.
fence, right?
Yes.
But would it be open to the public to park there when you have a public session of some kind?
We could coordinate that for those events. What we would probably do is park our apparatus out on the front of the apron or leave it in the actual bays. And then we would be opening up having somebody usher the public into parking in the back. But with the limited space, we wouldn't want people to get trapped in there if they needed to leave early. So that would be something we'd have to consider how many
It
spots.
sounds like that might limit your emergency operations if you had the public parking in that yard.
We would probably leave a lane open for us to get through still. That would be the intention. So in the past, when we've had public park, we would cone off areas where they can park, where we could still get apparatus by, and we'd have a spotter get out and watch us as we drive by to make sure that we don't hit any of the public's cars.
Is that something you do at other fire stations?
Our other fire stations don't really have a training room, so it's not something that we typically do. But when we do host public events at our fire stations, like open houses or meet and greets or public demos, we will sometimes pull our apparatus either out onto the front apron and then use the actual apparatus bay as kind of a public training venue. In this situation, we probably wouldn't have to do that since we have a training classroom. We would use that instead.
Wonderful. Thank you for those responses. Thank you.
I would also like to note on M1, it does show that turning diagram for an emergency vehicle passing through it. And those diagrams don't show them impacting, the vehicle stalls or driving through the vehicle stalls in order to navigate that space.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I don't do any other questions, anybody? So if not, let's get into a discussion of this project. Who would like to start us off? Ming-Chi, how about you? What do you think?
Thank you for your presentation and the model. We haven't seen a physical model for a while. And generally speaking, I'm in favor of this project, and I see lots of improvements from the study session. I do appreciate you relocate the windows at the training room and day room so that it's facing the corridor. And I do appreciate the deeper overhangs that you provided. And I think the materials are well sorted, and the site plan is also, the circulation is more clear and we know it's functional well. And I think the style of the building and the scale of the building, it is compatible to the neighborhood. And I think it's a nice improvement in addition to this area. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Board Member Thompson?
Sure, thanks. So thanks for the application. I think I wasn't here for the study session in February. I think I was in France, actually. But so it's nice to see this. I'm sort of seeing this for the first time. I have a few concerns. One of them is that the materials board does appear to be pretty incomplete. We don't have a material for the soffit. We don't have a material for the fascia. And that's a little concerning. Usually we also ask our applicants to define the texture of the stucco in the materials board with the color. Since the texture will define how that color appears. I kind of heard you mention we don't want it to be too bright. The color is called pure white. And I looked at it in the sunlight, but of course I'm looking at a smooth version of the color. So it's looking very, very bright. I understand this is also on the north side. So sort of less of a concern in that way, but it just feels like we don't have all the pieces here to really make a concrete assessment of if it's going to be successful. Some other concerns I have is that the stucco wall along sort of the residential side appears to be very blank. And I understand, that's sort of not a terribly public facing side of the building. So maybe that's lower on my priorities, but especially this main part where maybe there's art, maybe there's signage. It's definitely sort of sticking out as something as incomplete in terms of the thought. So I'm sort of struggling with that a little bit. The design is very simple. It's very clean. I think in general, my concerns are that it might almost be too simple. There might be like a next level of detail that needs to happen to create a richness. What's nice about the form in terms of the sloping roof form, I think that's really great. I think it sort of has a relationship to the library down the road, which is nice. The library has a lot of texture and it has a lot of materials, and this one seems very muted in comparison. So I think that's kind of my main concern. I think, I don't know if there's maybe more things we can look at as a board to sort of see if we can push this. I had a huge concern about the 4 actually, because it's like almost like this is the only decoration on here and it's a big 4. But I think there's a lot that could be done. There's a lot of like different textures that could still communicate that letter. There's kind of, it'd be interesting to see how that could evolve essentially. So I'll leave my comments there for now. I'm curious to hear my other board members' thoughts.
Absolutely. Could you clarify though, Osma, when you say the number 4 on the side of the building, you were concerned in a positive or negative way that it's the only decoration?
I was concerned that that took up a huge part of the facade without seeming to really contribute anything from a design perspective. I don't know if our signage code has something about the size as well that might be an issue, but even if it doesn't, I'm still kind of concerned that nobody will know what this building is. They'll just see a 4.
Okay. I ask because I'm going to want to come back to that as a board because it seems to me integrally part of the design, and yet to be told it's a separate application changes my thinking.
Right.
Okay. Board member Hirsch, what do you think?
First, I want to say that we're next to Mitchell Park here, and at the other end of Mitchell Park is a pickleball court, which is quite actively used. And one day when I was at the pickleball court, 2 firemen came over and they were playing pickleball, and they're very athletic and they're very incredibly good at picking up sports right away. And, it was an indication to me that they look to be part of a community. So there ought to be an attitude about the firemen that they aren't just isolated somehow and stuck in this structure when they're here, perhaps not in their family homes, but here for the night or whatever. So my concern is that the building doesn't really open up in that manner that would let them be part of the site and more visible to the community. The limitation of the clear story windows and the lack of openness to the site when you are actually, as you're describing it, improving on the landscaping throughout from one end to the other. And especially there's that tree, which we hope manages to live through and then becomes something that one would see on the outside. And you could relate to it. You certainly would from the frame, from the training room entry area there. But personally, I would like to see more openness to the building, more of a relationship to the site. It's not a small site. It's a big site, and you could open, in particular, the corners, in particular, the corner of the day room, for example. I'm concerned about some of the planning of the inside, although I think it's functionally very good, what you've done here with a training room on one side and the entire residential portion on the opposite side. There are 2 kind of side anchors, and then the middle is functionally, formally, it's a very discrete concept there with those 2 pieces on the sides on their own scale, and the middle being a representation of the function of the building. But I do see that, if you switch and this is function, we normally don't talk about planning like this, but it's very clear to me that if you switch the dining and the kitchen functions, you would create one big space for the day room dining. And then instead of having just a free floating wall at the very end, if you open up that side with a glassy corner, you'd have a very nice relationship to the landscaping that you just described as being improved with some trees, et cetera, in the front of the building. I don't see why it is so necessary to hide the function of the inside of the building. The exterior elevation seems to me to do that. And it's unnecessary on a site that's big like this. Also, I asked the question about the mechanical systems because similarly, the exercise room is a very important place for these firemen. Now you open up the back wall and you're looking at pretty much nothing back there. But if you rimmed that wall with clear story windows in the back of the building, you certainly would have a very incredible space for them to go and exercise. I don't think that the large opening at the back of the building is appropriate to that room, especially if they're really not using it in the way that they are now, where it opens up to some exercise function that's outside the building. It's really not a necessary use, but it could be a much nicer room if it had clear story windows all the way around. I'm sort of bothered by the idea that is not really totally expressed here. You have a front of the building with the materials that are used on the face, the wood material, the wood looking material, but the back of the building is a forgotten area here in that regard. So I think that even if it's going to be stucco, there has to be a distinction between the functions the way they are, the residential area versus the common fire access area. Those two wings ought to be reflective of a similarity between the two of them because you have chosen a material that's become a standard for the two sides versus the center, which is very different. So I think that distinction should be made on the building and be very clear from front to back. So if in fact you are using a stucco color in the back, then it should be a different color for the part that is different in its function. I'm bothered by the fact that you decide that the exercise room is the location for the mechanical towers there. I don't see why that couldn't be put in over the bathrooms and function just as well. And therefore you could get the clear story windows in the exercise room. And that could pop up to that elevation and satisfy that kind of issue. So although the planning is very good, I think it needs improvement. It's not there yet. And I think that ought to be worked out in the planning of not only the planning itself, but the elevations of the building. So, it's sort of ordinary to do just clear story windows with a vertical break of a window here and there, or a window at a corner and then turning a corner. Maybe this is beyond the scope of this particular project. I think it could be thought about in any case is that there are some very important corners here. Corner number 1 is the lobby. Corner number 2 might be the opposite end of the training room, which could have a greater amount of opening in that corner. Corner number 3 would be the day room corner itself. Corner number 4 would be the corner that you have the free floating wall, that's the dining room, so that if that were the dining room, which at least I suggest here, you would have some more openness towards the outside and the landscape. So the corner 3 and 4, those kind of would open up that whole room to the outside a bit more. In corner number 5, well, this is a kind of crazy idea on my part, is that I kind of like the electrical facility next door. So it's kind of a fun thing to imagine that being an important corner. You could see that piece of electrical sculpture in the neighboring yard. Not as important, clearly. Clearly, this clear story window is more important there. So what I've outlined is a rather significant change in the elevation treatment. I don't think this building would, let me put it another way. I think this building would be vastly improved if you worked on that. Now, I add to that the thought that, and we had a discussion about fresh air getting into the mechanical area for the training room. If you extended that vertical wall up above the window so that it was part of a ductwork that allowed that fresh air to come in, don't hide it from the back, make it part of the expression on the face of the building. It's a vertical piece of stucco. It would be improved by actually extending it vertically. So that would be a whole element in and of itself. These are kind of refinements, but it seems to me that this building needs one other scale of design improvements, and that you have the basis of it in the shape of the roof. You have a basis of it in the organization of the plan. What you need is take it one level further and make it a better design. I add to this some little details. You have an interior corridor. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a skylight in the roof so that you could get some daylight into that corridor? It's a pretty dead space the way it is. There's no exterior lighting in there whatsoever. But a skylight either in the hallway and in the locker room would be significant improvements. In terms of everything else, you study very carefully all of the movement of the equipment on the outside, entering into the doorways, the detail of the doorways you described properly. Those doors are quite wonderful. We saw them on fire station number 3. They're great. They work really well, and it's important to spend the money there. But I understand you're probably in a budget crunch at the same time, and I would still like to encourage you to work some more on the elevation and coordination of the building so that it could achieve what I'm trying to suggest here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hirsch. Board Member Rosenberg.
Thank you again to the applicant and to the chief for your presentation and your time this morning. I'm actually quite a fan of this project. I think it's well thought out. I think that it's clean, clear. The bedroom wing makes sense. The exercise room makes sense. I do agree with Board Member Hirsch's comments that if the mechanical is moved maybe above the lockers, then you can increase the height of that training room. I think that would be lovely, and having those clear story windows in there would be quite nice. Again, ventilation in an exercise room, probably a good idea. But overall, I'm quite a fan. I think that this is a very interesting application. I also want to make it, again, abundantly clear that when you have an overwhelmingly positive response from the public on any type of public project, that's kind of rare. And I sincerely appreciate the outreach that has gone on, and the fact that the overwhelming response was incredibly positive, 93% to 100%, depending upon which question was asked, is not to be ignored. This is a community building. If the community is supporting it, we as a board should take that into account. I do appreciate the improvements that were made, especially the overhang extension. I think it makes a world of difference. The windows, I'm sorry to disagree with you, David. I actually like the way that the windows are done now, because I think that the wayfinding is quite clear. I think that when you walk up to that front of that lobby, if you put a glass corner and then you have a glass door, it's a little bit more confusing. Whereas right now it's very clear, glass door, that's the entrance. Same thing on the back training room side, glass door, that's the entrance. So I'm quite appreciative of how those moments are handled. And to discuss the rear being a little bit more bland and a little bit more plain, sometimes that's how it goes with budgets. I think that you guys have taken a lot of care and thoughtfulness to the two front-facing sides, and that those are quite elegant. My comments would be, I would like, to know the fascia material. I would like to know that under eave material. The aluminum wood look is always a little bit concerning because you really want to know the color of it. Those colors can be tricky. And if they're going next to a porcelain tile, we'd want to see what that color juxtaposition looks like against each other. Stucco texture is important. Joint lines are important. However, I also feel that these items could be done as sort of a detailing, maybe even as an ad hoc. That's my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board on that. But I do feel that those, and the bird glass, those items could be handled in an ad hoc just to make sure that they're moving forward. I do not feel that they are major design things that should hold up the project. I also like the idea that David had of the skylight in the hallway. I think that'd be kind of pretty. Overall, I think that this is a successful project and I could definitely support it. My last comment would also be along the lines of urging the artwork and the signage. If that is being handled separately, we would like to see the signage. Having that large number 4 does appear as a major part of the facade of this project. If that's really not part of the project, then we shouldn't necessarily be looking at it right now. So having maybe I don't know how this would work through the city, but having a signage review, if that's staff level, if that's ARB, I don't know, the artwork as well. So those are important design elements that we'll work with staff to figure out exactly how that's reviewed, but maybe it would have been helpful to not have the signage on these renderings if we're not actually considering it. Those are my comments, and thank you again for your time and efforts, and hope to move this one along.
Thank you, Board Member Rosenberg. I've sort of been going back and forth, but find myself mostly in agreement with Board Members Thompson and Hirsch on this project. The materials are just not clearly enough specified, and what I'm hearing is not really satisfactory. You have 3 different kinds of wood on this project: the ipe on the fence, the vertical porcelanosa tile on the walls, and some sort of aluminum printed thing on the soffits. Well, that's a lot for any building to have all 3 of those, to somehow put them together in one building, and to not even see the details or see an understanding of how that works is just not okay. We need to have more information on that. The same applies to the questions you've heard about the stucco finish. I think Board Member Hirsch's comments about considering even just a different color of stucco or a different treatment on these back facades, that's not a budget item. You can easily do crack control joints and color on stucco on different textures to accomplish what he's talking about. To me, it looks like you just haven't pushed the design as much as is possible. I'm going to come back to something that Board Member Hirsch said, because it did sort of get to what I was thinking about. I remember at the last meeting, I had asked for the building to be more civic, to have more of a presence in the community. It's a public building. And what I've heard back is that this is a residential style design that the community likes and wants. I can respect that. When you build a residential style building, you build it in a way that it relates to the community, to the sidewalk. You don't have windows only 6 feet and up on front facing elevations. You have windows that show that people live there. You have things that make the building residential. That's what's missing here. This is stylized like a house, but the function is like a fortress. The intention is to keep the firefighters separate and private. You don't want anybody watching them while they eat. I get that. We deal with that in residential design, but there are ways to pull it both together. And I'm not seeing that here. And I'm sort of disappointed by that, because we made this comment before. But I think Board Member Hirsch put his finger spot on that. We want the firefighters, we want the firemen to be part of our community. They are, and they're an essential part of it. And to make it so you can never see anyone in these spaces, this whole living wing has really no way for anybody to know what's going on there. And yet it looks like a house. If this came before the IR committee as a residential design, it would be immediately rejected. It's not house-like enough. And it's that same je ne sais quoi element to it that's just not there. And it's disappointing, because the overall forms are attractive. And I can agree with the fact that the residential nature maybe is a better design choice for the community, especially given the community input we've received. But I think, Kendra, what the community is not judging is the comments David is making, which go maybe a level deeper than you're going to get at the public open house. But very, very, very valid comments nonetheless, what he's saying. I really would like to see more detail about the roof. I'm concerned about the slope of it. What's shown in the drawings is more than a 1 in 12 pitch. The model is different in the drawings, I believe. The thickness of that fascia will be critical, especially if it grows to be closer to 2 feet, which is what I suspect you'll wind up with when you get your structural engineer and your roofing consultants involved. A 2-foot thick single homogeneous band as the treatment with a painted metal it's not going to look very good. It's going to look sort of like your model. That's a detraction, in my opinion. It needs a little more detail, a little more design effort. And I think we need to see that. I'm concerned about the size of the roof overhangs. It's good to make them larger, but I'm concerned on the street facing corner, for example, the overhang seems to be different on 2 sides, yet the facade treatment is the same on both sides. So you're wrapping the corner with a different shaped overhang. That's usually not the best way to do it. Then lastly, I'm concerned about the signage. I don't think this is to staff. This is not a commercial application where we have a tenant coming in later with a separate sign. That's why we do that. This is a signal building. We know the function. The signage is part of the design, especially when it's a large number 4, which is the way a lot of fire stations tend to look at their signage. They want it to be some decorative element. And it needs to be part of this application, whatever they want to do. I'm not sure I agree with Board Member Thompson that it's inappropriate. I rather like the large numbers, but whatever they want to do needs to be part of our application here. So that's the gist of my comments, and I'm afraid I think it needs to come back for one more round of design to get this right. So I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks about it. I mean, we're at the point where, as Board Member Rosenberg said, we could put this through to a subcommittee to look at the material selections, perhaps the roof detailing. But other elements, I don't think are quite ready for a subcommittee kind of review. I think we do need to be mindful of the fact that some of these statements I'm making about the civicness of it and the openness of it are perhaps beyond the ARB findings that we need to make, and we want to give clear guidance as to what's expected. I think, however, Board Member Hirsch's comments about opening the corners more does make sense, and it is something we've already said once. With those comments in mind, do I have any other discussion on this item? Board Member Chen?
Yeah, can I say something about the openness of the building? Because I do appreciate the low-key residential form for this building. And also, when we walk around this neighborhood, we can see lots of Eckler homes across the street and in that area. So I think this building is very compatible with the neighborhood. And when we're talking about the Eckler homes, we notice there are always like smaller windows facing the street. And I think it's a very elegant design for the 2 elevations facing the public street. And also there are lots of glazing areas for this building. The clear stories, I think it's just perfect.
Member Hirsch, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I disagree because with Commissioner Chen, I think that, the backs of Eichler buildings open up to the sites, the fronts of them, as you say. But this site is held back from the street. It's quite a far back, and it will have a significant amount of landscaping in front. And those are the areas that are actually more interesting to look at if you're inside looking out. The back is a parking lot. The back is access to the bays, from the back. But the front of it has a good piece of landscaping. So I think it's worth, both from the point of view of inside looking out, where you have a day room and a dining room, those could be improved by being able to see more of the planting and the site around it. And from the point of view of looking at the building, to see the function of it as active firemen in this community that belong in this community, that are a part of this community. and that are active within the building. It should be open. You know, I think it needs to be open. You know, those could be done one way or another. There are different ways to do it, but it should be more open. And I think it'll make a much more attractive building once that's done. You don't forget, this is a larger building than most of your Eichlers, you know, so it's significantly larger. And, you know, I also didn't mention, but I felt that what is missing in drawings like this is that we never have a scale figure in front of this building. This is 25 feet high. You know, that's pretty high up there. That's a 2.5-story building at the front of the building. I recommend that any drawing that's shown to us includes scale figures in front so that we really get a sense of the scale of the building. I'll accept it though, because as Workman Chair Bolte said, it, you know, it's probably works, that the fact that it's sloped like that. No, but I think that I'm just repeating myself here, but that it, you know, that opening the building in front is an important aspect of this one.
So let's hear what Board Member Thompson thinks, given our discussion here.
In terms of opening the building up more, I don't know that I'm fully in concurrence with Board Member Hirsch and Bolte. I think I saw that was a comment that we made prior and was not incorporated. And so I sort of stopped putting my energy towards that item. So unfortunately, I don't have too much to add on that item. I think I do agree, however, that this building does need another layer of detail, which is something Board Member Hirsch did say. I think maybe we both meant it in different ways, but I was looking at the finding number 3, where we're supposed to find that the design is of high aesthetic quality, using high quality integrated materials, incorporating textures, colors, and other details that are compatible with and enhance the surrounding area. And typically, stucco hasn't been one of those materials with this board. And so I wonder if for that major piece, that is that white piece in the front, if this board might want to reconsider the stucco to doing something a bit more durable and a bit more high quality, maybe a rain screen, Swiss pearl, or something that maybe has texture. That could give it that extra layer of detail that maybe it's missing right now. But that's kind of where my mind's been, more so than changing the floor plans. In terms of, you know, access, I feel like the existing fire station is quite closed up in some ways. You know, it's a little hard to see in. And I'm sure there's benefits, pros and cons, functionality wise in that way. So I don't necessarily want to break a mold that makes sense. So those are my 2 thoughts on that item.
Okay. Kendra, do you have anything else to add? Board Member Rosenberg, anything else? Any other thoughts?
I do want to, Chair Bolte, I want to sort of touch base on the civic versus residential comments that you brought up.
Mhm.
I find we're sort of got 2 different opinions here. Is that one is the scale of this building is residential, except for the fact that it's sort of 25 feet tall and a little bit more grand lengthwise, but they are trying to be sort of respectful of residential geometry. I do also think that if you turned this into a residential looking building, that would make it less civic. So my opinion on this is that I think they've actually sort of found a really nice balance between having a residential scale and geometry that complements the surroundings while still giving it civic treatments of these high windows, of giving the firefighters privacy, and sort of, again, accounting for the wayfinding that somebody coming up to this building will see the glass doors and know where to go. So my argument to that would be, I do think they found a really nice balance between residential and supporting the surrounding neighborhood, but still being stately and civic enough that this building does stand out, and I think in a very positive way. But again, I'd like to sort of give you the opportunity to explain a little bit more and also to provide clarity for the applicant as to which way to go, right? We don't want to say it should be a residential building and then complain that it's too much residential, and then say it should be a civic building and then it's too private, right? So I think giving them a little bit of direction might be helpful in this regard.
Absolutely. We need to give them clear direction what we're doing. I agree with that. And I hear what you're saying. For example, I would like to see the day room have a patio, an outdoor patio facing the street on the Middlefield side. There's enough space to heavily landscape that exterior perimeter of that patio, but that would let you have bigger doors perhaps that go out to that, where the firemen could, on a day like today, recreate. Instead, what's been done is that patio has been put on the side next to the electric station in a tight space that is not nearly as desirable for the firemen, and I would say for the community. I think being able to drive by, walk by, and see the firemen out there is only a plus. There may well be technical or other issues that the fire department has with security and access, and that would have to be solved. That's why I don't want to be designing the building from here, but I'm trying to give you an example of what I'm talking about. I would like to see at least one real corner window into that training space and into the front reception area. I would like to be able to walk by and see a member of the public speaking to somebody at the front desk. Right now, it's just too tight. You can't do that. I would like to see when my fellow citizens are in there or my firefighters are getting a training, similar to when I walked in this morning. The building inspectors have a weekly training session on Thursday mornings, and I can see them in there doing their training. I think that's good. I think it makes everybody part of the community more, makes me appreciate what they're doing. When we wall it off, when we make it functionally separate, when the windows are only up high, we lose that opportunity. I think that's what Board Member Hirsch was alluding to. And I don't want to give prescriptive answers what to do. And I am of the mind that this building is good enough. It's doing what it's supposed to do from an architectural point of view. The design is good. It does, like you say, mix the civic scale. It's taller with the residential style, the flat sloped roofs of the Eichler houses, to the extent that it could be supported. So I could support a motion where we came up with, back to an ad hoc committee, some of these details we're talking about, the material specifications and the roof specifications. And I'm really just on the fence for the rest of it, where to go. I don't know if I'm addressing your concerns sufficiently, or even what staff and the fire department wants to hear. But I think typically what we've done in the past, especially on civic buildings like this, is send it back for one more round, let the applicant work through these comments and see if anything sticks. We've done this once, and maybe another round is in order here. I'll address one other issue, because I know that we're constantly pushed by staff. You have a deadline to get this building permit issued within a year to get your funding. I get that. We don't want to be the ones who slow it down, okay? We made these comments last time about the application being complete. It really isn't yet. You're not specifying all the materials. So it's on you to make a complete specification if we want to go quick. It's really tough for us to be taking on faith we're going to make it look lighter or a different color. These are going to match. We need to see that. That's our job here. Does anybody want to work towards a motion here?
I just wanted to respond to your suggestions for the ways of opening up. And I think that made it a little bit more clear for me what you and David have been talking about. And I think those are great ideas. And I actually think those would enhance the building tremendously. So I could very much support some of those suggestions, given that it sounds like it would benefit the building and the occupants as well. So I just wanted to make a note.
Should we hear from the applicant on a reaction to some of these things? Is that would you like to address some of what we're discussing? We very much want to come to resolution that supports the new fire station. We all want this.
Well, I will just say beforehand that it certainly looks to be, at least in terms of the responses provided before to what we're hearing so far, more of a refinement of what's provided rather than do something different, which of course is a much easier response to provide.
I don't think we're saying do something different.
No, I meant for the
basic
preliminary
design approach.
Yeah, I just meant for the preliminary hearing initial comments was some of them were related to that. So that's what I was saying. It's in this case, it seems a little bit more feasible.
No, and for the record, I don't hear anybody continuing to press regarding the site circulation patterns, the fuel tank, the entrance and exit, the parking even. Those, I believe we're all accepting. So what do you think?
Chris Ford, BRW Architects. Yeah, we owe you or the subcommittee or ad hoc committee more answers. That we're taking that to heart. We need to be more specific with our engineer team, exactly, or better model, or maybe a mock-up of exactly what that fascia is going to be. We want to do that. We can make those commitments and details. It's going to be publicly bid, and we can't specifically say it has to be this material, this manufacturer. Of course, public bid projects are allowed to, substitution within reason, but I'm taking it to heart. James and the team is taking it to heart on, yes, we need to fill in some gaps on the details, and we're looking forward to answering the questions about the richness of the design. I'm going to defer to the chief about the idea of having the dining patio on Middlefield. I really want to have him address that directly, but before that, specifics on the fascia, we're concerned too. We know it's a balance of getting the right material, the right look. I appreciate the comments about that we have that balance of a residential shape, proportions, but a civic scale. And I think we're all in agreement that we're very close, but we agree. We owe you some more information, whether that's back here or with an ad hoc or through staff. I'll defer to to Garrett and the team. But if Chief Lindsay, you want to talk a little bit about the security aspect?
If you don't mind, I'd rather not get into the specifics of that one idea we've floated. That's not something that needs to be discussed in public now. I'm sure that's a detail for the fire department to think about. And I don't want that to be taken as a suggestion to change the design. That was meant as a way to clarify some of the thoughts we have only. I would like to hear from the representative from the Public Works Department regarding the project schedule. If you could explain to us what timeline you'd like to follow.
Yes, hi, Valerie Chan with Public Works. So the schedule is that we would like our construction documents started October 1st, which would allow us sufficient time to bid, as well as go to council for construction contract approval after selection of the general contractor for this project by our funding deadline that is due June 30th of 2024. So staff has already looked at the schedule in terms of making sure we have our sufficient approvals and making sure we have a construction set that is buildable and per budget that we can execute.
Staff, how much, let's see, October, starting construction documents in October means there's August, September, 2 months to go before that deadline. Is there other approvals that are necessary aside from the ARB recommendation?
It would just be this one, the ARB recommendation. Okay, and then from there, we would say, you can do either a concurrent review as we kind of finish that last bit up so they can begin preparing those construction documents, like I said before, because it's not, so far the commentary has not been, we want something wholly different. It's a little bit easier to be able to achieve that.
Okay, so to the architect, is 2 months time to work on another design for this? Well, 2 months less 2 weeks of processing time. So you have 6 weeks basically if we continue this.
So we had originally discussed with Public Works that we would try and get approval in September. So that they could move forward in October. That is a 1 month turnaround, which is, only about a week or so for the architect. So I think that's a question.
Yeah, Chris Ford representing James, Chris Sano back listening in. Many architects on our staff that can dedicate their time to this. Like I said, we owe you some more information. We feel like we are close and we will make it happen. We'll confer after this with Valerie and the team on exactly what date, but I'm confident we can get back with those details and be ready for your review in September. Absolutely.
So I'm hearing, I think we're leading towards continuing this project for one more hearing. I see Board Member Hirsch shaking his head, and I'm going to see Board Member Rosenberg shaking her head the other direction. Yeah. Board Member Chen, how do you feel about this? I'd like to work with the consensus on this, but it seems to me that they have time to do another round of design. And at least 3 of us are looking for that. How about you, Karen? How are you thinking, Chi?
Yeah, I think there are some lack of information, materials and details. So if we have enough time to have another round, I would support it.
So, Board Member Rosenberg, can I give you a chance to try to be more specific with us? What do we want to see them do? We're going to continue it, but let's try to focus our comments then, can we? Maybe who can make the motion to that effect? If I ask you to do that, is that unfair?
No, I'm not going to motion this one. My motion would be to approve it and then go to ad hoc.
Or would you like to do that first? I mean,
Sure, but I don't think I'm going to have any support, but I'll put on the record, I move to approve this project with the stipulations that they come back for an ad hoc meeting to discuss materials, specifications, and detailing of the fascia boards, as well as artwork and signage.
do we have a second for that? I'm sorry, Board Member Rosenberg, that's going to fail
Understood.
for lack of a
Appreciate
second.
you guys humoring me.
So
I can make a motion.
why don't you do it, Osman?
All right, I move that we continue this item. Should we say a date certain in 2 weeks?
Probably
No,
not
it's too
2
soon.
weeks. I
4
think
weeks?
the 9/7 hearing would probably.
I know, I'll miss it. It's fine.
uh,
Okay, so a date certain in early September. I don't know if you guys want to think about the date before I finish making my motion.
Yeah, you guys need to decide if you can turn something around for the 9/7
Can
hearing.
we give it one more cycle? Why don't you do the second meeting in September? Just to give them,
Well, let's ask them what the right date is.
It just depends if you need, is a week enough time to turn around revised plans? Or do you need 2 or 3 weeks? That's the decision you're making. We're looking at the applicant right now.
Wait, can I ask a question in regards to that? So does that mean if we have a hearing, we would just have the hearing and also no ad hoc after as a possibility?
I mean,
That's
I
not
don't think we
100%
can
guaranteed.
state
Okay,
that for
yeah.
sure.
that's the goal, but
That
It's
would
up
be
to
the
you.
goal.
I would be more comfortable with a 2 to 3 week turnaround so that staff can adequately look at these plans and be sure that we have our comments back and addressed.
So that would be 9/21 then, is the ARB hearing.
9/21. Okay. All right, I move that we continue this project to September 21st, date certain. Subject to, we'd like to sort of see this project again with the following comments addressed. So a better defined material board that is complete, that is comprehensive of all the materials on the project. Let's see, and it's inclusive of the bird safe glass as well. Reconsideration of sort of the main stucco element facing Middlefield as a different material that's not stucco. And maybe considerations to the plan to open it up for more visibility to the public. Am I missing anything else?
yes, the signage.
Oh, better defined signage and public art if it's available at that time.
Okay, and then the roof
And let's get a second first.
And roof eave details.
What was the last one?
Roof details,
The roof construction detailing.
construction,
Eaves, the pitch,
slope, and eave.
And the, you were saying more openness. Can we define that a little bit better?
I think, are you talking about item 3, visibility to the public?
I suggest we leave it based on the contents suggested in our discussion and let them think about what we're saying. I feel very uncomfortable specifying individual design elements like a patio, but rather let them think about it and see what they come back with.
Is it, should, instead of saying visibility to the public, is there a more generic way you'd like me to phrase that?
I'm just wondering if we're talking about a specific portion of the building that we want to be more open? Is it this, the corner element?
I don't think we want to
Or is
define it.
Okay, we want to leave it open to the entire
Yeah,
street-facing
anywhere that makes
facades.
sense.
Consider providing greater openness on the building facades to allow the public to better understand what's going on inside, something like that. David? Correct, yeah. So.
Just repeat that one more time.
I think that's good, providing openness along the building facade.
Yeah, it's the facades we're talking
openness.
about.
Yeah,
Openness of the facades.
as consistent with, building's function and relationship to public.
That's it. Yeah. Building
Can you add
functionality and public.
that? Okay, consideration of providing greater openness along the building facade as it relates to the interior function
Public visibility.
and public visibility.
Do you think that works for you guys, the staff? Is that
So-
getting close
I
to?
think, I mean, I know Jody had just asked, but so that we can be a little bit clearer, I mean, because we're talking about the facades, are we mostly talking about the ones along East Meadow and Middlefield or all avenues of the buildings?
I think various board members made comments about all the facades. Those should be thought about by the architects and the fire staff. Ultimately, we do not want to prescribe what to do. But look, we made these comments once and you guys chose not to follow them. We're making them again. We're asking you to do something. Okay, you have good architects, do something.
Do you mind if I just speak very quickly to, there was a part of this motion included public art, and it is in the code that public art is considered by staff and the Public Arts Commission only, and it's not appropriate for public
Fair
art to
enough.
be
Board
coming
Member
back
Thompson,
to
would you
the
mind just
Architecture Review
taking
Board.
number 4 to relate to the building signage,
So
not
is-
the public
You're
art?
saying public art's not required?
It is required, but it's not appropriate for the ARB to be weighing in on the public art at all. It's weighed in on by the Public Arts Commission only. It's actually codified in the code that it goes to, it's considered by staff and staff meaning our Community Services Division, Public Arts Division, and the Public Arts Commission
So,
only.
so that's the content of the art, but are we allowed to weigh in on the location of the art or where the art happens?
We can have Elise who's on, but no, the Public Arts Commission weighs in on the location. They do an initial meeting with the Public Arts Commission to weigh in on the location and kind of come up with ideas of the kind of the art. Then they select the artist and then they come up with a conceptual design that's approved by the Public Arts Commission.
I see. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense because this building should stand without the art anyway.
I think we want to see the signage as part of the design.
We would like to see the signage.
So
Yes.
number 4 should really just say, present a complete signage package for the building. What is the sign going to be?
I think that's fine as long as it seems reasonable that we could come up with the signage we want.
Matt Roschke, MATTRASCHKE, Public Works Department. In all the past public building projects I've done, we have done a separate signage package for review at a later date by the board. It's, I think, probably in the best interest for this to follow that same track that we'll be coming back to you with a full signage package, possibly once we even have a contractor on board to refine the signage. I don't know if the timing of the September 21st would otherwise allow us to fully prepare the development of this signs to meet the signage code. Those are
So what if we,
basically,
if you don't mind,
placeholders.
Ursula, if I could suggest, present a conceptual signage design for the building.
Just for the front entry.
So we're not looking for where the fire exit signs are, a conceptual design of what you want to do. So let's leave it at, can you change that, Osmo, for that?
Yeah.
As written, does that capture?
I wonder
Also,
if package gives the wrong connotation.
Conceptual sign design.
Conceptual design, yes,
Doesn't need to say with locations. That's part of,
yeah.
okay, do we have is that a good motion, then, Osmo? Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Anything- Yeah, is there a second?
I will be happy to second it. So I'll second that motion. Okay, any comments regarding this? David, you want to?
I'm just trying to see if we got enough interior, exterior discussion in this, consideration proceeding. Greater openness along the building facade as it relates to interior functions and public visibility. I had recommended that they try to redo the mechanicals in the back so that they could get some daylight into that exercise room clear stories. I think it's important to relate the front and the back of the building here somehow, because that's symbolically with the clear stories, and that portion becomes a part of consistency in the building itself.
Would you like to suggest a sixth friendly amendment?
Openness along the building facade as it relates to interior function and public visibility and increase in
I think it'd be a different item, right?
yeah, it could be a different item.
Yeah, maybe
Exactly.
just a consideration to study adding clear story windows to the training area.
Thank
Or
you,
sorry,
yeah.
the exercise area.
Exercise room.
Sorry.
Mhm. And yes,
So item number 6, friendly amendment is consider adding clear story windows or skylights to the exercise room to provide greater daylight.
Yeah.
Is that good, David?
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
also in terms of materiality, I think that there should be something for front and back of the building that relates as well. So in terms of the stucco coloring, I'm concerned that we have that same color repeated on that side wall doesn't define the center box of the 2-story space.
I'm not going to add that one, or I wouldn't approve adding that one, only because we're already asking item 2, which is to reconsider the stucco on Middlefield to be a different material. So I think that's up to the applicant. The good thing about, the silver lining about coming back is that unlike an ad hoc committee where you can really only change only the items on the ad hoc, when you come back for another quasi judicial, you're able to sort of make more wholesale changes like what is being suggested without it being on here. So I don't want to necessarily prescribe too much because there's a lot of freedom that you have in this way.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment number 6. Is that acceptable to you, Board Member Thompson?
It's acceptable to
Okay,
me.
it's acceptable to me as well. Do we have any other suggested amendments either way? Kendra, is there anything you want to modify this to? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Board Member Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
No.
Chair Balte,
Yes,
motion carries 4-1.
thank you very much.
Usually we give the board member that said no a chance to talk about why they said no.
Thought I did that already, but go ahead. Kendra, do you want to
No,
address
I
your no
just,
vote?
to address my no vote, it's simply based on the fact that I do believe that this is a complete package that meets requirements and should be moved forward. Other than that, I think that my board members have done an excellent job of providing fair direction forward. And in theory, I do support their concepts, but I would like to have seen this project move forward today. So that was the reasoning for my no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Rosenberg. Okay, so we're done with this action item. What time is it now? Let's see, 11 o'clock. What do we have left? A few. Shall we push through this, gang? Let's just keep going. Okay, so next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. So we have 3 separate approvals. Can I have either comments or a motion on Architectural Review Board minutes for May 18th of this year?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Second,
Okay.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
yes.
Board Member Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Yes.
Chair Balte.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. Next one is the Architectural Review Board minutes for June 1st of 2023. Can I get a motion or comments, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes dated June 1st.
Second.
Can we have a vote, please? Roll call vote.
Board Member Thompson,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Yes.
Chair Balte.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. Next item is Architectural Review Board minutes for June 15th of this year. Can we have a motion or comments, please, again?
I move that we approve these minutes.
Second.
Can we have a vote, please?
Board Member Thompson,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg.
Yes.
Chair Balte.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you very much. Last item on our agenda is board member questions, comments, and announcements. I'd like to have Board Member Hirsch address the question of the display of the sign of the boards from our Architectural Awards program at the Public Library. Where do we stand with that, David?
Yes, well, I heard today that the boards have been used already by the council, I believe, in a meeting.
By planning.
Planning.
Planning department. for the-
Okay, planning during a public display. And that they are now available for us to distribute to the local library. Rinconada has already expressed interest in it. I will get in touch with the head of the Rinconada Library and set up a date. And Claire and I will discuss how I can pick up the boards. I have one comment to make about it, is that we had all written little pieces about each of the projects. So if you could look back in your files and send them to me, those comments, then we could forward them to the library. We get them typed up or whatever, so that they'll be included in that, in the display, what we said about each project. Does that strike a good idea, everybody?
By when?
By when?
Yep. Need a deadline.
You tell me when you can. I'll talk to her because, we have to arrange for her to get the easels to put the display up. So it probably, let's say, a couple of weeks to do that.
Let's say by the next board meeting.
That's fine.
Everyone has to either email their comments to staff or bring them printed here to the meeting.
I hope I can find my own.
Can I request that staff sends an email out making the request? Sorry to be
Of
nitpicky.
course,
I think
no
that will be
problem.
helpful. Thank you.
Very helpful. Okay. David, does that cover the display of the board?
Yes, yeah.
Good, thank you. Any other items on the
Yeah,
board?
there's a
member?
quick one. We noticed in the city official reports, it wasn't noted that board member Chen and I shared out on the Lambert project already, 300 Lambert.
Oh, thank you. I didn't
Just wanted to note
realize that.
that we shared,
300 Lambert, let's
we
make a
shared
note
on
of
that one.
That must have been at our last meeting then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
let's make a note of that, please.
And who's on the ad hoc committee today? Oh, you and I?
Okay, so our meeting is now adjourned. We have, Claire, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I do have one other item. There was an ad hoc that was assigned for to report back when the NVCAP comes back related to bird safe glazing. I believe board member Chen and board member Thompson were on that ad hoc. And seeing as board member Thompson is not going to be with us when that NVCAP comes back on 9/7, I was wondering if we could maybe assign a new person along with board member Chen to.
Okay, good point. So the purpose of that subcommittee was to come up with more information to better inform the Architecture Review Board about the importance and techniques involved in bird safe glazing for buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the purpose was to think about whether there's anything that could be added to the NVCAP draft that may, be appropriate for implementation of bird safe glazing based on any additional information they found.
And we want that report out on September 7th.
September 7th, the NVCAP will be coming back for further study session.
And is there any possibility that two of you can put together some information before the end of the month when Osma's term formally ends, so that you can report back with Osma's input, even if she's no longer on the board? I'm afraid, Osma, you're the most passionate about this issue. And I'm not sure, it's hard for me to get too enthusiastic about it, to be honest with you.
What, bird safe glass?
Yes, bird safe glass.
Get you excited?
Is there anybody else who would like to take her place immediately?
So sorry, when would we get information?
So we're asking for a report out on the 7th,
Okay,
which board member Chen could do. I'm suggesting that we don't replace you, but rather she report from the committee which completed its work before your
Okay.
term ended.
sure, we can make time for that.
Are you okay with that, board member Chen? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so.
Hopefully
Well,
with that
no,
report out, that will,
it'll be part of the, oh, you're saying, do we need to put it on the agenda that they'll be reporting out, or? I guess it depends if we want it to just be a report out or a discussion.
I would like to see it agendized as a discussion, informed by the report from our ad hoc committee.
So the idea was that the report was coming out as part of the NVCAP discussion. Is that when we have the implementation discussion on 9/7 was the idea.
I think we're just peeling off the bird safe glass portion. And
It was
having
just a question of whether the ad hoc could provide some additional information as we are discussing potential implementation measures and other ideas of what to suggest to staff in long-range planning. So it's
Okay.
kind of part of that whole larger discussion.
Yeah, I think we can put it on the agenda and we'll just work with the team about, what specifically we're asking regarding bird safe glass.
I think it's good for the public to know that this will be part of that discussion, albeit just a report back from our subcommittee. And my intention will be to disband that subcommittee after this meeting, unless something else comes out of it. But that's why I don't want to assign a new member right now. Okay. But let's make sure that it's expressly stated in that agenda, at least it's one line, so the public can see that we're going to discuss this. Thank you too for your flexibility there. So can we adjourn now? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.